Welcome everyone to our Finance Committee meeting for June 15th, 2022. It's about 6:30 p.m. Roll call, Ms. Belcher.
Joe St. John.
Here.
Damon Capel is absent. Tim Gose.
Here.
Maureen Neff.
Here.
John Grumney.
Here.
David Martin.
Here.
Cindy Cooper.
Here.
6 present.
Thank you. Let's go to the minutes for our last meeting, which was on May the 18th, 2022. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Martin.
Second.
Second by Mr. Grumney. Any further discussion? Kathy?
David Martin.
Yes.
John Grumney.
Yes.
Cindy Cooper.
Yes.
Maureen Neff.
Yes.
Joe St. John.
Well, abstain.
Tim Gose.
Yes.
5 yeas, 1 abstention.
Thank you. Okay, first item on the agenda this evening, we have a discussion here for potentially amending our annual appropriations amount due to primarily these 3 items that are listed here. And for the record, they're the Sunbury Parkway District Plan Proposal, the RFP that's out there, and the Letts Avenue repair issue that we're working through, and some added legal services. So I want to start first with the Sunbury Parkway District Plan Proposal. As you know, we do have the RFP out there. It technically closed end of last week. And the proposals that we've received, they're being reviewed in detail still by Mr. Hennessy and Mr. Piles. And preliminary cost estimates range anywhere from $125,000 up to $150,000. Again, I think we originally had planned somewhere in that less than that neighborhood, that ballpark. So we need to discuss about potentially increasing that. So let's start with that. I think I'll have Mr. Hennessy give us some background on that since he's the point man.
Yeah, so thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you indicated, we have put the planning committee together. Thank you, Councilman Grumney and Mayor St. John, for being a part of that. We do have 2 citizens that will be a part of the steering committee, Ann Frost and
Rick Ryder. Yeah.
And then from a staff perspective, both Wes and myself will serve as a part of the steering committee. The steering committee's role is basically to review the proposals, make a recommendation to council in terms of which applicant to accept. There will be a little bit of refining the scope of work as well before we come to council with a recommendation. And then there'll be the ongoing monitoring the progress of the contract, the status of the project itself, and helping to assist if there are questions of the contractor, or if we need to engage the community, we will probably have some role in terms of helping that. So as the chairman indicated, what we're here today to talk about is not the proposed applicant, or I'm sorry, the recommended applicant, but really just to give you a heads up in terms of how it would affect the budget. We did expect the number to be somewhere in the 6 digits, and I think we're learning that it's going to be in that range. That said, there may be another funding source that will be considered for the costs, and that's the NCA district, or the NCA authority, which covers the interchange and what it will be a portion of the new Sunbury Parkway. That said, those funds won't be available for some time into the future. So we're going to need to make, if nothing else, a cash outlay and hopefully a reimbursement at some later point. So again, mostly just trying to get in front of you, let you know where we stand with respect to this project. I think we're going to try to do a first reading this evening on the amendment. We'll have a better sense of the final number before we ask you to do the final approval on that. So I don't know, questions, comments from the council?
Mr. Mayor, any further input?
No, not at this point. I'm really looking forward to diving into the proposals we've received. I think this is a very noble plan to go about, just making sure that we have a very sound plan and we can guide development in and around the interchange.
Absolutely.
Yes, agreed.
Yeah, so we appreciate council's support for it as well. We know it's a big ask, but an important step for the future of the city. So we, again, appreciate that.
Very good.
All right,
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Hennessy. Okay, nothing further there. Let's go to the second item under that appropriations title there. Let's Avenue repairs potential. As you all know, we have discussed in the past couple of meetings the Let's Avenue issue with the sewer over there. And I think Mr. Piles has been working on that a lot lately. So why don't you go ahead, Steve?
Well, I believe at your last meeting, the engineer had suggested that we get a third quotation. Mr. Wampler had made arrangements with that contractor to come in and look at the job. Unfortunately, that contractor did not show up to look at the job. So, which does not go over well with Mr. Wampler at all. So we will be at your services meeting, the next meeting, providing you with a recommendation on the contractor. Again, it's to repair a section of pipe where we have an intruding tap that's really reduced the capacity of the pipe. And then we have another section that's related to a collapse. The cost will probably be around $40,000 for the repair and the pavement repair that will have to be associated with that. And again, at the services meeting, we'll have a recommendation for you.
Speaking of the services meeting, Mr. Piles, do we want to have that? Is it needed? Let me ask you that. Is it needed in 2 weeks? Because we're going to have to decide if we want that third meeting this month.
That'll be to your pleasure. We're doing some root control activity right now, so it's good to get that out of the way before we go in to do the repair. But if there's no other reason to meet other than that, I don't think it's necessary.
Okay.
We have the funds, and we may even have the appropriations that would allow us to pay out of the sewer fund.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
could cash flow it if we
Right.
need.
We cash flow on it. Okay. We also have a balance there. It looks like, I mean, this would come entirely out of our sewer fund, right?
Yes.
Current balance is 4.3 million. That's on page 2 here of your packet. Its funds are available. Okay.
While we're working at Letts Avenue, is there any discussion about the addition of curbs and sidewalks in the areas that don't have them along that street?
Oh, we haven't discussed that. It's a reasonable idea. I think we'd have to put that within the scope of our next paving project.
Well, if you would make a note to include that in your next scope.
Okay.
Thank you.
Some of the areas, the legacy areas in Sunbury, the right of way is not necessarily as wide, I'll just put it. So it's almost like you're either going to take property, which is sometimes frowned upon, or tighten the lanes to free up the space for the sidewalks. I totally agree they're needed though.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like one of the big things we talk about a lot is connecting communities. I mean, our zoning code is a good example of that for future development, but going back and correcting the previous development, it's a little
And the
bit more tricky.
proximity to the trail right there.
Right.
That's right on top of it.
Yeah.
For the most, I mean, that's the nearest roadway
Yeah.
adjacent to it. So we need to make sure we do it right. Okay. Anything further on that? Okay, let's go to the third item there, legal services potential. We do have, as we talked about last meeting or two in council, some additional expenses to consider from Mr. Brogdon from Frost Brown with regard to our tree preservation code. And that's the one item I'm aware of. I'm not sure, Mr. Mayor or Steve or Daryl, do you have any other input on additional legal services? Ms. Melcher?
Is there a request outstanding at this point for, do we approve anything to engage Frost Brown Todd? I don't know that we would have necessarily needed to because
I believe up to your,
right.
Yeah.
Right.
Am I remembering right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and I don't think we've exceeded that at this point. Just a little bit of background, Frost Brown Todd and Aaron Brogdon in particular, as he's represented us in the past. We were in mediation with the school districts a few years ago. Aaron Brogdon represented us. His specialty is really litigation. And we've asked him to simply look at some various issues that we're dealing with in a development right now to ensure that we don't end up in court after the project goes through and is finalized. So that's ultimately what we're looking at. It may have been explained to you that they were looking at tree policy at the last meeting, and that is true. That was the most detailed review they've done. I won't go into a whole lot of detail, but in case this wasn't provided to you, the Supreme Court in the state of Michigan had a ruling last year that, for lack of a better term, said tree policies and tree replacement policies are unconstitutional as a one-size-fits-all. And the development community in general is saying that's true. We say it's not true, and Aaron Brogdon backs us up on that, and we've sent out some letters to different developers because of it. That's what we're paying for.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just for the record, the first reading this evening on that ordinance 2022-01 simply reads an ordinance amending the 2022 annual appropriations. So no amount in that ordinance for now. Okay, very good. Anything further there? Nothing. We will move forward to.
Do we plan on rejoining session afterwards, finance? After this next bullet point?
Yeah, I mean, actually, I wanted to save the executive session for last.
Okay.
Yeah. Why don't we cover what's next down below? It's just the standard year-to-date numbers that we get on our monthly basis in our finance committee meetings. Kathy, can you give us a little background, a little bit of color here?
Well, the income tax is up 11.6%, but the general.
would you put your microphone in front of you so we can hear you? Thanks.
Income tax is up 11.6%, but the general fund itself, which includes LGS, which is local government funds, it's down 2.9. So it's because local government funds had so much money from ARP and everything come in last year. That's why they're down comparative, but income tax is up. Your bank reconciliation interest is almost non-existent right now. So that's going backwards.
Do you anticipate that going up with the recent?
No, I don't, but we'll see.
Okay.
I really don't. So I did the current year-to-date, month-to-date revenue for the whole year for the general fund through May. We should be at 41.6. We're coming in at 41.91. But real estate is up, local government's up over the budget, and income tax is up. But interest is going the other way. And then we have the expenses for each fund. Questions?
I noticed the street fund down at the bottom of page 2 says expenses for the street department are $19,709, which is about almost 5% of the budgeted 400,000.
That's planning.
Sounds
Sure.
favorable.
Yeah, it is because we haven't done anything yet.
Okay.
So that's just some of the pre-planning for CT consultant, the engineering to get ready, the bidding process, that kind of stuff. We haven't done any of the construction yet.
Big expenses will
Yeah.
come in a few
They'll
months.
come.
when
I think they're
work is
supposed to be done by August, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. Do you see any issue there with the current balance?
No.
We're on course there
Yep.
with what we're gonna do?
Fine.
Okay. Any further input or questions on the numbers this evening?
So a question about the COVID-19 fund. Is there any advantage or disadvantage to moving those out of the fund?
I
Like
think
to,
we've got
for example, could we clear it out, move it into a fund that, you know, we would plan to utilize it in potentially sewer?
We can do it whenever you
Okay.
want to do it. I think we've got until the end of 2024 to do it.
I just wanted to call out the impact fee balances ultra low right now. 11,000 in municipal facilities. Scary.
We spent that one down to
We
about
spent
zero.
it
so.
down, because you know, we have to get it spent in 6 years, so
Right.
we targeted that to get it down. I targeted, I wanted to spend it down.
Are you interested, Mr. Mayor, giving a little background on where we are with impact fees and our
Oh, sure.
study and where we're headed?
Sure. Yeah, I'd definitely like to do that. So a couple things, about 2 years ago, we started engaging in the process of updating our impact fees, and we engaged Tischler Weiss to do a study for us. Over last year, we had provided inputs as in what our projections were for growth, also our projections for capital improvements that would be necessary to keep up with the growth. And the numbers came back, and there were pretty significant increases. You probably recall, we really haven't done any significant increases in the past 20 years. And recently, we wanted to go back before we brought the legislation to council. When I say we, I mean Steve Piles, Daryl, Dave Bream, Tischler Weiss. Thought it would be a good idea to just do a relook at, okay, before we bring this forward, we know there's going to be a significant increase. Let's make sure we're level, and level as in the most up-to-date information. So we updated residential growth counts that we have, DRK in particular, with 744 multifamily units. We included Eagle Creek, Price, Rolling Hills. So the short version is what we thought was going to happen. And these aren't final yet, but we thought that the capital improvements would stay relatively the same. Since you're increasing the number of units, you just divide by more numbers, and the overall fee per unit would go down. What also happened, no surprise, due to inflation, construction costs have skyrocketed as well. So they're about the same, a little bit higher, but we still need it. This is fresh information, but I wanted to provide all this information to finance at this point. So hopefully a month or so, you know, we'll have something to bring forward. Does that seem?
I think that's reasonable at
Yeah,
this point.
I think so. I think we're settling down on probably within the next 2 or 3 meetings, we'll have something to bring forward as far as the first reading. And we have been providing the development community, specifically Pulte, DRK, those that are going to be impacted by this with our updated fees.
Very good. Thank
Any questions on that, comments?
The only thing I would add is to that is touch on just briefly is exemptions or credits that plays a part of the equation in determining impact fees and what current developers are doing or will be doing to help potentially offset the cost of the fee. So it's complicated, and that's another reason why it's taking longer than we thought.
I agree.
All right. Any other questions, concerns about the budget numbers? Okay, I think we'll go to our next item and last item on our list. And as you all know, we have a candidate, a very strong candidate for our Director of Finance appointment. And we have to discuss that. And I believe we want to do that in executive session first. Is that correct, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I'm going to read this. And what will happen, Dana, is once we go into the session here, you'll have to leave. You can go downstairs on the first floor and hang out where it's a little bit cooler. Maybe 15, 20, 30 minutes. Well, it's got to be shorter than that. We've got a meeting coming up. So probably 15 or 20 minutes and we'll come back and get you. Okay?
Steve, real quick, do we want to include Dana in?
At your discretion, you could.
Okay,
You are allowed to invite.
okay. Maybe we'll include everybody in the room in the executive session and we'll figure out when we want you to come up and talk, right?
Okay. So correction for the record, Dana will remain in the session. Okay. Oh, very good. I'll read this then. The executive session per ORC 121.22 G1 allows for executive session to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee or official. Do I have a motion to go in executive session?
So move.
Motion by Mr. Martin,
Second.
second by Mr. St. John. Ms. Belcher?
David Martin,
Yes.
Joe St. John.
Yes.
Cindy Cooper. Yes. John Grumney,
Yes.
Marie Neff,
Yes.
Tim Goat,
Yes.
6 yeas.
Okay, recording will end and we'll bring it back when we're done.